Good evening. My name is Jenna Birch, and I am the Director of Alumni Relations here at Westchester University. Thank you for joining us for the WCU 150 History and Heritage Exhibition Lecture and Tour Series. Before we begin, I would like to let everyone know that our next lecture and tour will focus on the history of military service here at Westchester University. Please save the date for Tuesday, April 5th at 7 p.m. and register online at wcualumni.org. You can also find the complete list of upcoming lectures on the Alumni Association website and recordings of previous events. Please remain on mute until the end of this presentation, at which time you will be invited to provide feedback and questions related to the subject. For the best experience, we recommend having your viewing screen set to speaker, which will allow you to view the presentation in the largest format. This can be found on the top right-hand corner of your screen. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Museum Director, Michael D. Giovine.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael D. Giovine. I'm the Director of the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology and also the Director of the Museum Studies Program and I guess an Associate Professor of Anthropology here at Westchester University. Today we're the next installment of this thematic tour and speaker series of the WCU 150 History and Heritage Exhibition is focusing on student life and student involvement. We have the best people possible who could be talking about this. We have Charlie Warner, who's the retired director of student leadership and involvement. We got Cara Jenkins, the director of Fraternity and Sorority Life. Barrett McGee is online as well. What are you, the assistant director?
The Associate Director of Student Activities.
There you go, Associate Director of Student Activities. We have an 1871 fellow and one of our student co-curators of this exhibition, Chelsey Moore, and Julia Zom behind the camera, another student co-curator. You've probably heard this before, but what we like to do here is I give you a little 1 or 2 minute spiel on what this exhibition is, but I'm going to turn it over to them to talk about the theme, which of course is student life. And I can't think of, when we're thinking of student life, this is the most obvious one to look at. Everything we do at Westchester from the normal school period on is about the students. And of course, every iteration of our institution has put its own spin on the culture of the students in this area. So basically what this is this is the capstone project, the capstone course for the Museum Studies program, which is an interdisciplinary program operated out of anthropology here at Westchester. And essentially students learn from start to finish how to curate an exhibition. We sit around, we talk about what our theme is going to be, what the big idea is, what basically the thesis is, what we want the visitor to walk away from. And then we kind of source the artifacts, we learn how to care for them, and we design and install this exhibition. Then of course, you guys get tours as well for lots of different people, for younger kids, for first year experience, for people of the community. And we were talking about this one, this was a long time ago, it seems like, because this is almost over, but it was during the pandemic, we're all on Zoom, and we were kind of thinking, what do we want to show? And one of the things that we were kind of playing around with was this idea of having a timeline. I think the idea was, what was the big idea? Remember?
It was to commemorate, I'm Chelsey Moore, to commemorate the 150 years of Westchester's history. So we wanted to have an exhibit that dedicates towards that history, and
right, and kind of just show the transformations from our origins as a normal school from the very beginning, 1871, which was basically a school for really high school age students to be elementary school teachers, through the Westchester State Teachers College era, which was in the 20s to the 60s, to being a liberal arts college, Westchester College, in the 60s to the 80s, and then from 83 onwards, the Westchester University, the largest public comprehensive liberal arts university in the PASHE school system. But we also want to do these deep dives into different kinds of aspects that illustrate this kind of transformation. So we have, for example, we have basically they go around 3 different areas, right? So we have scholarship and research, these in the middle. We have what else do we have? We have diversity and inclusion. We have sex, gender, sexuality. We have race. And then we have a lot of student life things. We have sports, we have a Greek life, we have military service, we have clubs, we have the arts. And so really, I think the student life really kind of permeates everything in this exhibit. So I think, probably the best thing to do is to hand it over to you and you guys and, take us on a tour and have a conversation.
Okay, well, we're gonna start with the beginnings of Westchester University, which was the normal school. And we're gonna head over here. When you first walk into the exhibit, you have what the world was like in 1871. So at this time, we have the Ottoman Empire still going on. We have different artifacts that highlight what the world was like in 1871. For example, a War and Peace signed copy, and all these other different artifacts that we do have on our virtual exhibition online. So in 1871, our university was founded, or our Westchester State Normal School was founded, and we started out as soon as the college was founded, student life took off. And we have a lot of different groups and organizations that get together, such as the first club at the State Normal School was the Moore Literary Society, which we do have a artifact, which we are going to show you right over here, of one of their minute books. And
Big book over there, right?
And Charlie, I'm going to pass this on to you. What was the Moore and the Aryan Literary Society all about?
Yeah, so Westchester Normal School was no different than most campuses around the country in the late 1800s. Literary societies kind of came about because students wanted to find a way to connect with each other. And so the literary societies were really what I would consider probably your early definition of a debate club. So they'd get together, they would talk about poetry, they would talk about philosophy, they would talk about things that were going on in their classes. It was a great opportunity in the beginning for students to see a university or a college experience. And for us, it was a normal school, to find that experience and see what it was like to interact with each other beyond the classroom. And that's really the key when you think about involvement. It is, what can we do beyond the classroom to engage our students? So the Moore Society was the first group that started in 1871. Right. So literally right along with the founding of the normal school.
And these were all student run. So literary societies were distinct in that they were independent of the administration and had their own regulations and rules and bylaws. And we still see that today with bylaws needing to be approved with all student organizations. And some of those officer positions, corresponding secretary, there was in my own sorority that was the name of a officer position.
And look how much they needed to write. They took very detailed minutes, and we have a couple of other minute books we'll show you as we go around. I mean, they're fascinating repositories too, to understand the culture of the time and what they were interested in.
And really, literary societies are the precursor of any club or organization that exists on any university campus today. That was really the start. And when you look at clubs and organizations in general, that's really what we consider our founding.
Right.
It's really the prime example of that co-curricular, connecting what they're learning in the classroom and debating it outside the classroom and connecting on its social.
And when we founded Old Library, our building where the museum is, as our first library, the books that they collected, the Moore and Aryan Society, that became our original collection in our library. Right. The books as well. They were also the journalists, right? They were the ones that were writing the student newspapers, and
they created their own libraries.
Yeah. So they're really fascinating groups of people. They're Renaissance men and women, I guess, because they did drama. I think the Aryan Society was a little bit more focused on drama as well. Yeah, that's cool.
We're going to move on to our charter for the normal school, which we have here. So the normal school is a college that basically teaches teachers. And we have our original charter that was written in 1869. And this would train high school age students to become future educators, such as elementary school teachers. And that started our teaching here at Westchester. We were teaching teachers, and now 150 years later, we are now having majors such as business, arts, music, all of those different wide range of liberal arts majors. So that is one of our founding artifacts. Then we'll move on to, we have a very interesting club. In 1886, the Temperance Club was founded, and that I'm gonna have to pass on to Charlie to talk about that.
So again, Westchester, the normal school was no different, not atypical of most colleges, universities back in the late 1800s. What the Temperance Club really was set up was to really look at this issue of alcohol and its place or no place on a university campus. And for us, it was actually came out from the Young Women's Christian group. So it was like a student union in a sense for our women students to talk about why we don't want to have to deal with this alcohol issue, why that is not necessarily something that needs to be important for our students to succeed at the normal school. And 1886 was the founding of that group. That group lasted several years before it closed down, but we have had different iterations of this club, and quite honestly, on campuses today, it's usually referred to as SAD, Students Actively Against Drunk Driving. That's really the precursor of that group.
We'll get to, we have a Knights of Temperance minute book over there. That's really interesting. But you know what, when we did the Women Gender Studies tour, one of the things that they talked about was the fact that these temperance clubs at the time were also sort of coupled with suffrage clubs. We don't have any suffrage clubs at the time, but they worked for women's suffrage because these were issues that women, when they were getting married, had to deal with, right? They didn't want their husbands to be drunks and everything like that as well.
And these clubs are the ones that gave women voice on campuses, right? And when you're looking at the women's movement, I would actually go back to at Westchester 1886, because that's really the precursor for us as women were starting to feel more comfortable about expressing what they wanted, right? Again, in the late 1800s, women did not have the right to vote. And as Michael mentioned, I think it's important for us just to realize that at that point in time, it was important for women to find a place for themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So student life continues with the first gym being built.
Yes.
So campus recreation, we have a beautiful new fitness center at the corner of campus, but what was Erringer has evolved. The 1890 first gym being built.
I mean, that was visionary too. I mean, I think we were one of the earliest, we're not the first, but we're one of the first with like an elevated track, and because there was this idea of educating the entire body, right? The mind, the spirit, the athleticism, as well as academics. At Phillips, this was the big boom. Phillips is building projects, recitation hall. There was an infirmary at the time. I mean, even up to the early 1900s, the library and everything else. I mean, these were the quintessential, campus that we have, and so many different things. They thought, with this gym, I think it was the second building on campus.
Yes.
And they were always thinking, oh, there's going to be a classroom or something is going to be the next building on campus, but yet it was something for student life, right?
And we move everyone knows at Westchester University, we have a student newspaper called The Quad. And The Quad, me being here for 3 years since 2019, I have been a part of The Quad for a little while, but we find the foundations of The Quad with something called The Amulet, which we have here. And that was published in 1892. And it's a student-run newspaper, which it still is today. And it documents events on campus, any types of commentaries between students, and the world content that was going on in 1892. And we have a sample copy here.
Now, this one was the one that was published when George Morris Phillips died. So it's all about him. So it doesn't look as newsy as the other ones, but still there are all these tributes to him and everything else. It's pretty interesting.
So that also gives another voice to students here at Westchester. They can put their thoughts and their feelings onto the pen and onto the paper and project their voice out on campus. And also in that same year, one of the oldest buildings that is still on campus, if not the oldest, is Recitation Hall, which still has classrooms in. I have a class in there this year. and it was converted into a small library in 1892, and it is still up today. It is a very nice building. Moving along the timeline, we have this book here that was signed by Frederick Douglass, and he spoke here. It was his last public speech before he died in 1895, and he talked about his life story of being a slave and how he came out of slavery and the slave rights movement and all those things. So how was student life here on campus at 1895 following the conclusion of the Civil War? How was,
Yeah, so following the conclusion of the Civil War, our college was really just trying to figure out what it was going to look like after this major war. And for our students, we were open throughout the Civil War, but our students were coming back, and particularly male students who wanted to be teachers. And so a lot of our students started to kind of reconnect with each other. We would have students who would come back who had been in battle, wanted to talk about that. So we did have some organizations like our literary societies where they had opportunities to kind of converse with each other and think through what that might be like. The newspaper, I think, probably is the one piece that is a surprise for a lot of people to think that we would have a newspaper in the 1800s. Many campuses at that time did not have a voice in that regard, and particularly did not have a student-run newspaper, which makes it a particularly interesting for Westchester. In most cases, you will find an administration will put out a student handbook, which would have some news of the day. Sometimes they will have announcements made in classrooms back then, but to actually have a printed document was something that was pretty unique. But our students, again, you know, the Civil War was a tragedy, but I think what happened for Westchester was not different from many other campuses. We just kind of figured it out and came back together and started to create opportunities again.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, so I think that laid a foundation for civic mindedness, and in the year 1900, a group went to DC to meet the president. And I think that probably started a trend of taking trips off campus to increase that civic awareness, whether that be political in nature or leadership wise or service oriented through our service immersion trips. So I think that might be a good segue to give the mic over to Barrett. Barrett McGee, our Associate Director of Student Activities, is currently on a trip with students in Chicago at the ACUI. You'll have to remind me of the acronym ACUI, what it stands for. But want to hand that over to you to talk about sort of the importance of getting students outside the bubble of Westchester and what that means for their co-curricular experience.
Yeah, ACUI stands for Association of College Unions International. So it's all folks who work in student unions, not just across the country, but worldwide, because it's an international conference. So there are folks from the UK and Ireland and Canada here. So it's really exciting. So yeah, we have students here not only attending the conference, but actually serving in volunteer roles at the conference. So they're not only traveling with us, but they're also volunteering and learning how large conferences are being run. So it's a really, really interesting experience for students. So yeah, I think, you know, all the way back in, that photo was taken in 1900, I believe. It's an interesting photo too, because you can see that in that photo, there are more women than men. You can tell by the hats that the hats of the women are much larger. So the normal school is probably starting to shift with to more women. So yeah, so that, you know, that tradition has continued with taking students on trips, and travel is a really great way to kind of enhance the student learning experience. It's something that we do with students that are through the Student Activities Council. We've led trips to DC as well, to Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York City, Pittsburgh, And then in a partnership with the Center for International Programs, Charlie and I used to lead trips to Europe over spring break every year. That happened for a number of years. We went to a lot of different countries in Europe. So yeah, I think travel is an interesting way to kind of for students to learn, because traveling itself is a learning experience. You got to imagine that a lot of folks who come to college haven't really had the opportunity to travel outside of their hometowns ever. And so just learning how to exchange money, learning how to deal with different languages, learning how to, people who've never been on planes before, all that's, you know, all those new experiences kind of enhance the experience that folks have when they're at school. So yeah, so I'm in Chicago now. The river is green. We've had great weather here. So yeah, but it's a nice kind of fun experience to get off campus. But you know, folks are learning a lot while we're here too.
I did grad school in Chicago, and it's so much fun for St. Patrick's Day there. And I will just add on, you know, I totally agree about travel. I mean, you learn so much. I mean, I always run a study abroad program. I have almost 30 people for this summer, which is great. People want to travel again. But I always say, and it's not even just to be self-serving, but I said, this is the time, right? This is the time, this is the age when you should be traveling. You're tied down with anything, but also you're learning so much. And while, you know, we always have learning outcomes and curricular, you know, activities and things like that, it's so important to just live in a place, you know, interact with locals, and to figure out, in Italy, you have to sort your trash into 5 different cans and stuff, just to learn those little things. Because, you know, there's an old anthropological truism that you know, it's easier to define yourself by what you're not than what you are. You know, once you get, you're in with kind of alterity, with otherness, then you're like, wow, this is, why are they doing it this way? Why am I doing it my way? And then kind of figure out about yourself. So I think it's a great, you know, it's really great. Yeah.
And I think for us to be proud is the fact that in 1900, we were sending students on a trip. That was not always the case on most campuses. And today we send either through our international programs office or through individual offices, hundreds of students abroad through the course of the year. And as Michael has mentioned, I think that's so important for our students. There are no longer really borders in this world. We are all interconnected. You know, what's going on in Ukraine, we are all affected by that. And so, you know, I think for our students to get a good sense of what life is like beyond small town USA is an important part of their university experience.
It's so rewarding too, to see people kind of figure that out.
I was just gonna say, and that's no small amount of students.
No,
That's
no.
like at least 50.
It's also not the only time we've done it. So this is one picture, but there are many other times. We have letters as well, them writing back to their parents about their experiences and who they saw. Of course, I think in this one in 1900, there was an alum, the Congressman Thomas Butler, who actually was an alum of Westchester that they met as well. But even before that, Teddy Roosevelt spoke here in 1896. You had, of course, Frederick Douglass. So I think, I don't know, were you going to plan on talking about that later, but we have lots of, you know, people speaking, you know, which of course enhances student life as well.
And one of the things that Westchester is really known for is breaking barriers. And in 1910, we have one of our first African-American students graduated, and that was Walter H. Smith. So we not only opened up our doors for African-Americans and every student of all walks of color and life on campus. And that also opens up to the 1910s with the World War I crisis. World War I breaks out in 1917, and Westchester students have left Westchester to go serve in the military. And so we have an entire exhibit here dedicated to student military service, which is behind me. So we have students going off to serve their country, putting their education on hold, as well as, and then coming back and finishing their education. We also have, continuing on with that, in 1934, everyone knows Rammy, our famous mascot, but before, in 1934, we had our first goat mascot, and his name was Elmer. And so there's a picture of him with 2 ladies. So our mascot has changed. It's not only been Rammy, but it has also been some other animals. We also move into World War II in the 1930s, end of late 1930s, early 1940s. And then we also have student life kind of integrates with the women's dorms in 1945. And this, I'm going to pass on to Cara or Charlie, and how the female residence halls became fully integrated. And African Americans were now able to house with individuals of all walks of color. So how was student life on campus when that happened?
Yeah, I mean, when you again, going back, 1910 was the year that we graduated our first person, student of color, our first African American student. So what, 35 years later, we as an institution finally decided, you know, we need to be integrated in our residence halls, because we want to make sure that our students are understanding that to be able to live together, to understand each other, you need to have the experience of being together. And residence halls particularly, and they were called dorms back then. They are now called residence halls. So that's a very big word distinction. Many of you on today might remember calling them dorms, but they've been residence halls for decades now. So, but it's a living, learning environment, right? And so why would you not want to make sure that all of your students are living and learning together, right? And so, you know, I'm sorry it took so long for us to get there, but we got there as an institution.
Of course, that's just women. Men were
Right.
in the 60s, 70s.
Yes, it took a while for the men, as usual.
I mean, campus life was really a reflective of what the culture was at that point in time, right? This is when at dinner time, you're wearing a jacket and a tie to go to Lawrence Dining Hall for dinner, like as a group of men or as a group of women. Men were not allowed at all in the women's dormitories. My parents graduated here in 1970, and I remember them telling me a story about how my dad would go to my mom's residence hall and like try to, like, he'd have to call up, right? And there was one phone on the hall and inside the hall, and her roommates would be like, Paulette, Wayne's downstairs, because he couldn't go upstairs. So if you feel like 1945 is a long time, right, to wait, but the conservatism of the time is reflective in all student life at that point. Yeah.
And we continue on. At this point in time, we're now called the State Teachers College. So in 1960, we began called as the Westchester State College. And so we have one of our famous presidents, Earl Sykes, who became president in 1961 all the way up until 69. He was here for 8 years, and he was really proud of promoting diversity on campus. And we did talk about diversity and inclusion in one of our other lectures. But he is well known for his contributions here at Westchester. And we also have the creation, and I'm going to pass this on to Cara, of a big part of the university's culture of Greek life, and how that came about in 1967, correct? 67, 68. And we have a whole exhibit dedicated to our Greek life. And yeah, if you want to start on.
So right around that time, the Vietnam War was going, and student activism on campus was seen in a number of ways. So that point in time, there were no recognized fraternities and sororities. I should note that the Friars Society was founded in 1937 as a single-sex service organization, and because fraternities weren't recognized, they were founded as a non-fraternity. And so right around as the activism was getting on campus, the men in particular said, well, we should have the right to gather as an affinity group of men. And if it's not included in the case, but if you read the petition for it's Robert Miko, remembering his name, but the words that he used to describe why the administration should recognize fraternities and sororities are the same that we use today to defend the relevancy of these high-risk groups. And so at that point in time, there were 6 local sororities, which means they're not affiliated with a national group. You won't find them at other campuses. And so They were successful in their petition to the student government at the time, and then the university administration. And so between 1968 and 1970, those 6 sororities affiliated with national sororities, and 7 fraternities were founded on campus, including Alpha Phi Alpha, which is the first and oldest historically African-American fraternity on college campus. So I think that's a significant thing to know. Most of the things in this case are actually Charlie's tenure of when he served as the director of student organizations and Greek life. So he can talk about Dance Marathon that has come back to campus in recent years. And there's a step show trophy, which exhibits the talents of our historically African-American and multicultural groups.
Thank you, Danette Reed. I don't know if you're on, but she
Yeah.
loaned us that.
Mhm. And I mean, that's my dad's Lambda Chi Alpha, mugs back there. But pins and badges are important artifacts, and the gavels symbolize the leadership component of fraternity and sorority life, and all those co-curricular skills that you learn as a result of membership. So, when I arrived 10 years ago, there were 800 students in organizations, and there's close to 2,000 now, and 10 more chapters. So it is thriving, and we challenge them every day to live the values in which they were founded and honor those men who petitioned back in the late 60s. So
Yeah. Charlie, do you want to talk about the dance marathons, and were you a part of one?
So yes, I was the advisor
Uh-huh.
to the Intergreek Council, which coordinated the annual dance marathon. It was very much modeled like the Penn State Thon,
Mhm.
right? Our charity, or our local charity, was a camp in Lower Chester County for children whose lives are affected with HIV or AIDS, called Camp Dreamcatcher, and all of the proceeds went to Camp Dreamcatcher for a number of years. We stopped doing, I think this was a 48-hour dance marathon. We stopped doing that after a few years because the students just felt like that was just too long. And we did a few 24-hour ones. And then, as time goes, our students just felt like they could raise money in a different way rather than dancing for 24 hours. And so we shifted that. But a wonderful opportunity. And as you'll see on the poster, all of the dancers who made it to the end signed the poster. So it is a great artifact and a great historical piece for the university. The other thing I wanted to mention beyond Greek life is that in 1969, Black Student Union was founded. An important time for us as an institution to have that group come on campus and to be recognized as an organization that's really there to help support our students of color and help to educate our university campus.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and moving right along as our university continued to form and include more others. In 1971, we have our boxing club, which we have a artifact hanging up on the wall. That was founded actually in 1955, called the Golden Rams. And unfortunately, we do not have the boxing as a sport or as a intramural here. But a lot of the individuals who were on the boxing team went on to win state championships. And it was a really fun sport during that time here at Westchester. So we can show you the artifact for that. One building that was unfortunately demolished in 1972 was Old Main. And we do have relics and pieces of the building still on display here in the university's exhibit. But unfortunately, that was demolished to make room for new buildings, updated technology, such as the new science and mathematics building that is up now. So we also move on to, we have in 1973, we have the Center of International Programs was established. So that kind of contributes on to study abroad trips, which Barrett and Dr. Giovine talked about. And it also provides students with language trainings and I unfortunately have never been a part of a study abroad program, but
There's
I
still time.
there
Come
is
to
still
Italy next
time,
year.
there is still time, so, and that's what one thing about the programs are, it gets you out of, it lets you experience new cultures and new, have a new experience of life.
And Chelsey, I'll say one
Yeah.
other thing, because I think this is also important, is that Center for International Programs, and even before they were founded, also facilitate bringing in international students as well.
Yes.
And of course, our first international students, I mean, even at the Cuban, the Spanish-American War, we had a lot of Cuban students that came in. Phillips himself was really interested in bringing and promoting the normal school to Caribbean students. Even though in 1910, we have that record of the first African-American who graduated, there were, of course, others, and also Latinos and others that were here before then. We just don't have the graduation records for them. But I think internationalization on campus is one of our missions, and it certainly adds a great dynamic. I mean, I'm sure we have international students even in anthropology and
Yes.
history, so it's really wonderful to share, to get to know them as well.
In 1974, we have the Women's Center, which was established, and we did talk about in our women and gender studies lecture about that. But that was really interesting because women were able to get together and continue on with their thoughts and experiences as a group, and they were able to come together, like I just said, and
They were
Yeah.
advocating for gender equity in
Yes.
particular.
I will note that the Women's Center, the sorority women at that time came together to provide the first form of childcare on campus.
That's right. They also had childcare at the Women's Center, which we don't have.
Yeah.
We could.
In 1976, we have the Gays of Westchester was founded. We do have a big, we are very inclusive here at Westchester for all students of all walks of life, sexualities and all of those, and all of that. So that was a big movement here at Westchester and everyone around that time. That was a big movement. And Charlie, how was that here at Westchester
Well,
for students?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that the 70s was really a chance for Westchester students, not unlike the general population, to really think about who they are and define their niche. And if their niche wasn't here, they would create it. And so, in the 70s, we really found a lot happening here on our campus in regards to figuring out ways to support different silos of students. But I use the word silos very tentatively because their goal, their responsibility was to help educate everyone. So yes, it was providing a support for students, but it also was serving as an educational tool so that our students, the general population of our students, understood what it was like to be a female student at Western, to be a female in America, or for our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender students. The Gays of Westchester really was the harbinger for creating an atmosphere at Westchester where everyone is accepted.
And I think, when Aaron, one of our other student curators, he did a 30 interviews with different faculty and alumni, including, a lot of different people, right? Jackie Hodes, and who gave a talk on LGBTQIA. But one of the things that he really kind of points to, and a theme that comes up in a lot of these interviews, are the fact that these types of what I guess you call cultural clubs, from something like Muslim Student Association of today to the early Women's Center and Gays of Westchester and the Black Student Alliance, these are places also that really are there so that people can find their niche, like you said, but it helps also with retention. It helps with doing better in school. Can you say, I don't put you on the spot, but can you
Sure.
put,
I mean, there's lots of studies,
Yeah.
that if you are involved, it doesn't even matter what you're
Right.
involved in outside of the classroom, that you're more likely to graduate, you're more likely to give back financially, but persist to graduation, and you're happier.
Yeah, our students at Westchester University from the beginning have embraced involvement And I think it's actually a piece of the educational process here now. It complements the academic mission very seamlessly.
And just like you said, they're taking what they learn out of the classroom and putting it towards their own friend group. For example, I'm the president of the anthropology club here at Westchester, the mentoring club here, as well as Lambda Alpha Nu Anthropology Honor Society. So I'm the president of all three. So yes, I do agree with that. It helps you as a student become more involved, and I love coming to campus and I love being here because of that, plus my professors. So
I
Adrian,
don't come to your
Chelsey.
meetings.
You know that Charlie mentioned that the interests of the students, like if they haven't found their niche, they're going to create it. And I thought this was a good segue to then bounce back to Barrett, who is going to welcome a special guest with us tonight.
Yes.
And without further ado.
Yes, my absolute favorite thing to talk about at Westchester University is Banana Day. I can talk about it all day long. So luckily I don't have to talk about it all night long because we have a really special treat for the folks on the call, because Rudy Tellez, who created Banana Day back in 1996, is here on the call. And Rudy, you're gonna tell us like what your story is and how that happened. And I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm excited to hear this. There's a Banana Day t-shirt in the exhibit. But yeah, Rudy, if you could share with us kind of like the origins of Banana Day for us.
Absolutely. Barrett, thank you for the invitation. It has really been something that I've been very proud of to see that it's alive. When I left Westchester back in 2008, I wasn't sure if the tradition was going to continue, but to my great surprise, now we're about to celebrate the 26th anniversary. Back when I became a student, when I went to Westchester for the very first time, being from a different country, I used to watch TV and seeing all these colleges have major events going on and the students chanting and having a great time. And coming to Westchester, I was wondering, what was I going to see? And homecoming was the first experience that I had, but then I wanted more. I wanted to leave a mark. And by the time I was in my senior year and I was in student government, I felt, since I came to this country, that I felt welcome to Westchester University for who I was as a person. And the idea of giving back and uniting the campus and bringing that energy of unity to our campus alone became Banana Day. I had been thinking, how can I do this? How can I do this? And one night I was just, I couldn't sleep. So I was just watching a movie, and there in the movie, I get the inspiration when I see Banana t-shirts at USC California slugs, banana slugs. And that was it. So I got very excited. It was on the weekend and the idea was still going in my head. I was picturing parades, people dressed up as bananas, t-shirts, people just smiling. So the idea kept evolving, and it was just like, I couldn't wait till Monday to go to the student government office and just start sharing the idea. By the time I got there, people were just cracking up when I said my first idea. And I went across the office to Off-Campus Student Association, and they loved it. And they said, like, count us for, $300. So I just started making my way to the different offices, and it was very contagious. And then the t-shirt that is behind me is actually the very first t-shirt that we created. It's one of 50, and Student Activities Council, I stopped by and I donated my old t-shirt, so you guys have it. But it created controversy because they didn't want it to have it distributed because we had bastardized the Westchester University logo by putting bananas on it. So they told us you cannot distribute this t-shirt whatsoever to anybody. We were able to find a way, and it got distributed. But the energy that I saw when I did the first Banana Day was that students were thriving and they wanted to do something different. And after I left, Rob Perino, an alum also Westchester, did Banana Day, but there was no Banana Day for the third year. So at that time I was in grad school, and I noticed that there was an opening at Westchester University. And I said, if I get hired at Westchester University, I'm going to push for Banana Day. And I did. So when I came back, I told the students the story. They fell in love with it. We did Banana Day number 4 all the way till I left in 2008. And in the process, it increased the level of pride I heard so many stories about students wanting to come to campus simply because of Banana Day to get a degree, which is great. But it also inspired me while I went back to continue with the energy of the prior history. So I ended up also buying a RAM, a live RAM for the university, which was a headache finding a live RAM. And then after finding it, finding a farm that would house them. So with the story Banana Day on some of the t-shirts, we used the RAM because we had connected the old and the new. And there always has been a story of symbolism on the t-shirts. Why is it there? And that's how we get started. So there's always a hidden message, or there used to be a hidden message on the Banana Day t-shirt, and people had to find out or try to figure out if they really were into it. But that's the beginning of Banana Day.
That's so fun.
That's
That's
awesome.
so great. Thanks so much for sharing. Of course, there's our, I think this was a pandemic t-shirt. I think this was from 2020. Even though we were all virtual, we still had Banana Day virtually, right?
That's awesome.
We did. We still celebrated it on social media, and we actually had like a really incredible amount of participation virtually, because students really love the tradition that much that they knew it, the time was coming. The date is always the same. It's always the third Wednesday of April, which is also National Banana Day. So students were looking for it, and they wanted to participate even when we were in COVID. And so as you were leaving, Rudy, I started in 2009. So literally around the same time, the student government came to the Student Activities Council and said, we've done Banana Day, but we don't feel like we can sustain it. Can you do it? And the Student Activities Council, it's also called SAC, they said absolutely, because we really felt like it belonged within student activities. So they've carried it forth since then. Yeah, and it'll be the 26th anniversary. And I think that's my favorite thing about Banana Day is that it was created by students and it's been sustained by students. And it's really become an incredible, fun day. And I have to share one story and one fact about Banana Day. The story is I have a student right now who is in the Student Activities Council who came on her own to take a tour of campus, and she didn't even think she really wanted to come to college. She didn't think college was for her. Her mother was really saying, but you have to, like, this is what you have to do. And she chose Westchester University, and she's like, I'm gonna come and just on my own and see if I'll even like it. And she happened to pick Banana Day when she decided just to come on her own. And she drove through campus on that day, and she's like, I don't know what's going on, but it looks a lot of fun. And she had a moment where she's like, I think I can do this. I think this will be okay. This looks like a lot of fun. So that's what I think is so great about tradition. And it's exactly what you wanted, Rudy. It's creating something that's really fun that people kind of look for when they go to college. They look for that big, wide campus activity. And Banana Day is so cool that actually in 2018, it won an award. It won the Best Campus Tradition Award nationally through the National Association for Campus Activities, which I think was just like the highlight of the whole experience. So we're going to do it again this year. I'm looking forward to it, but thank you so much for being here, Rudy, because like I said, I could talk about Banana Day all day. It's something that if you participate in, you totally get it and totally understand why it's great. But yeah.
Barrett, I really appreciate you running with this. And one last fact that I wanted to share. About 7 years ago, my sister who lives in Singapore sends me, they are 12 hours ahead. She sends me a message on the Banana Day here. And she says, my son just came back from pre-K and he's all happy opening his backpack. And he says, Mom, do you know what today is? And my sister is saying, I don't know, what is it? And he goes, it's Banana Day. And my sister just couldn't believe it. So because we had created an IWS account at Westchester University, and I used to upload pictures of Banana Days, some guy in the United States decided to identify us. And because we had moved Banana Day to be the third Wednesday of every April, it had become the day to celebrate Banana Day. So this person puts the calendar on it. And because of Twitter, because of social media in general, it just spread out. So one of the best things I enjoy is the night before Banana Day of every year, I go on Twitter and I just do the hashtag Banana Day, and people around the world, businesses are spreading the message of Banana Day, and it all lands on Westchester University the following day.
I
for
think
that,
foundation should
it's great.
bring back Chiquita Banana or something.
Get that sponsorship.
Get sponsorship.
Before we let you go, Barrett, can you talk about this Taylor Swift poster and
Yes.
maybe music performances on campus as part of student life?
I can, absolutely. I mean, that was a little bit, I started in 2009, so it was before I was here. But, you know, I mean, Westchester University, like any other college and university, has a history of inviting performers on campus. And that's sort of been like as long as colleges and universities have been in existence. But I think in the 90s, it started to really ramp up and students started clamoring to see really big name acts on campus. And we were no different. So, at that time, 2007, Taylor Swift was well known. People knew who she was. It was a very popular show, but she hadn't reached the height of fame that she obviously is at today. And I think that's sort of something interesting about inviting performers on campus, especially at a medium-sized school like Westchester University. Oftentimes we get folks sort of like on their rise, and I always encourage students, I'm like, you may not have heard of them yet, but you definitely want to go check out whoever's performing on campus because they could become someone really, really big. And so Taylor Swift is sort of like our beacon, our story that we tell, like you could have been the person that got to see Taylor Swift. But we've had Jimmy Fallon has been on campus. He was here in 2001. Big Sean was 2012. Amy Schumer was 2013. So that's just events that we've done. But the President Speaker Series has done a lot of really well-known folks as well. They had Linda Ronstadt last year, I believe. About to have Christopher Jackson, who was in Hamilton on Broadway. So yeah, rich history of kind of inviting folks to perform and to speak on campus. Like we mentioned earlier, obviously, like, you know, Frederick Douglass spoke on campus, but we've had Barack Obama. So we've had really, really well-known speakers and performers on campus ever since we've been in existence.
If you're an alum on the call, maybe put in the chat, like who you remember seeing when you were on campus.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. So we'll move along, and in 2014, we expanded to our Philadelphia campus. And that's really interesting because it is a group of multiple colleges such as Millersville, Bloomsburg, and all of them are involved. So how, Charlie or Cara or Barrett, how has our campus here at Westchester, how was that experience moving to Philadelphia?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. I think it's proven difficult for those students who attend classes in Philadelphia because most of those are non-traditional students, right? Who just can't come to campus and take classes from 8 to 4, 8 to 5. They really are concentrating most of those classes in the evening to accommodate those people who are working full time. But I can share that before I retired a couple of years ago, we were in discussions with our Philadelphia campus about involvement and how can we engage these non-traditional students in club or organizations on the Philadelphia campus. I'm not sure where that has fallen, but it was exciting to think, are there ways that we can help get these students who are by and large commuter students right in Philadelphia? We don't have residence halls in Philadelphia, but how can we bring them together? And, you know, it's wonderful to have that opportunity for students in Philadelphia, but it's not easy as students come and go with lives.
I can share.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Cara. I can share that we have sent the Philadelphia campus bananas and banana day t-shirts because, again, it's a tradition that we want everyone to experience. They kind of have to do a banana week there because not all the students are there on one day. So it's not really fair to just do one day. They have to have things available all week long, but that way they get to participate in some of the traditions as well.
I was just going to say pre-pandemic, as we were creating the Division of Student Affairs as a co-curricular catalog, and it's searchable by where the programs are and who it's for, and highlighting which are available on the Philadelphia campus, and there's emphasis on having parallel programming available. So as we kind of come back to campus and re-engage in the co-curricular transcript, I know that's going to be an emphasis.
And in 2016, we have two big events among that I want to highlight. In 2016, we opened up our resource pantry for students that are affected with homelessness, they're insecure with food, and that helps students acquire food, job interview materials, gets them started for their life in college as well as outside of college. And we are famous for our marching band in the Macy's Day Parade. We have one of the drum heads right here that we have. So we are very famous for having our marching band, which has all students in it on our Macy's Days Parade. We also, kind of finishing up here, we do have, in 2020, we had our Black Lives Matter protests, which was a big campus-wide event, and I unfortunately was not here for it, but if one of you were here and talk about how that was.
Sure. The student organizers were specifically from our National Pan-Hellenic and Multicultural Greek Councils. And I was so excited to see this as a placard on the wall, as it really was reflective of the activism that you were seeing across the nation at that time. And for our students to, in the middle of a pandemic, put those masks on and come to campus, partner with public safety and the administration to kneel and demand change on campus, I think that it was a turning point. I know that a lot of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion work is being done on campus, and I'm not sure what the specific year is, but when I first got here, it was the dream of the Multicultural Resource Center to have a chief diversity officer on campus. And so we added Dr. Tracy Robinson to the cabinet. And really, I think the students driving the change they want to see is what's going to affect the culture of campus. So I was really proud as an advisor that day.
Yeah, I mean, we were closed, the campus was closed, so there had to be a very intentional planning and movement there. Yep.
Great.
Are there any questions or from anybody in the audience?
It's hard to not look.
I know, we're trying to look up, we're looking down at the camera.
I'll let Jenna scan the chat. Maybe Jenna, you can filter out any questions that came out, maybe.
No questions, but I do see some comments on who visited campus. Sally Rye, Jesse Jackson, Carl Sagan, Carrot Top, Stephen Wright, Jimmy Carter, Cookie Roberts.
We've had actually a lot of presidents. I mean, you know, Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, everyone.
And the first lady also went here for
That's-
her
Yes,
master's.
That's
Jill
true
Biden
too.
got her master's
Joe Biden
here.
got her master's here. You know, one of the things I remember when we were planning this, Charlie, we were, Chelsey, it was during the pandemic, Chelsey and I were on Zoom with you, kind of talking about what should be included in the student life, the club's case. And one of the things that you said, and that's why I like the boxing club, I don't know if you can turn around, just to see this mix of artifacts here, because we have a Banana Day t-shirt from 2020. We have a boxing from the 70s, which was a really big support mechanism. We have YWCA from the early 1900s, where they were paying 25 cents as a ledger book. The Knights of Temperance, Fire Club from Wayne Hall. These things come and go. We don't have the fire brigade anymore. We don't have the Golden Rams Boxing Club.
Not
It's
allowed
so
to.
big.
Not allowed to.
Yeah,
Too risky.
too risky. That's true too. But one of the things you said is that this is unlike other things. You know, when you look here behind you, the academics or something, these are all things, you know, I have to get funding from top down. I have told I negotiate what I'm going to teach and things like that. But this is really bottom up kind of a thing. Students, as you said, I think, Cara, if there's a critical mass of students who have a particular interest, you can make it happen, right? And then they're ephemeral, you know, they go away. There's no, obviously, temperance kind of failed, you know, we tried that. And it's not there anymore as a club like that, although, as you said, sad and everything is still around. Boxing club, huge. When my dad was, you know, in college, boxing was really popular. It's not as popular among the younger generation, so it's not there anymore. So it's almost like you said something like it was a good barometer of kind of the culture at the time. Did you say anything about that?
Yeah, I would just share, you know, if you were to look at the total number of clubs that have that have started at Westchester, in the 30 years that I was here, we would be over 600 clubs.
Wow.
Right? So
If they sustain.
if they all had
Right,
sustained,
they all
right?
stayed, yeah.
Right now, we're at 280 clubs. When I left pre-COVID, we were at 320 clubs. So we did not lose that many clubs through the course of COVID, but interests change. Student populations change, and what they want to engage in is always going to change with the times. Service and giving of self was not as big back in the 1960s and 70s like it is today, that it's a part of the kind of the makeup of an organization. And so, the boxing club, as popular as it was, it's been replaced. When you think of our sports
All the
clubs,
co-ed, yeah. all
our
the-
sports clubs, we have a sports club
And
program that
intramurals.
has over 1,000 participants in the clubs. When you throw in intramurals, you're looking at 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 Westchester students who participate in that. But I look at the scrolls here representing religious organizations. Over the years, we've lost lots of religious organizations, but it's because students' interests have changed and religion has changed for a lot of our students. And they're trying to figure out who they are. And that's what colleges and universities is supposed to be about. And so, our largest religious organization, which is Campus Crusade for Christ, or at least it was hundreds of students. They had to have 2 or 3 different services to accommodate the students. But no matter where you look at the different categories of clubs, we have gained and we have lost. The area that we've gained the most has been special interest organizations. That's where Westchester University students shine. They have an idea that they want us to bring forth, and they work very hard to get that special interest group to start. And when you look at the attrition of special interest groups, probably one of the best attritions that we have. So yes, interests change over time, but it's amazing. It always has been amazing to see. When I left, we had over 9,000 members of all of our clubs and organizations. And those are individual members, right? A lot of students, right, are members of more than one. And so, this is a very engaged population. I think it's one of the things that has made Westchester really special for a lot of students.
Of special note, through the pandemic, we have the same amount of students in our fraternities and sororities as we did pre-pandemic. They recruited remotely. They educated and brought new members in through Zoom, knowing that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that they were going to be back in person. So that I was surprised, and they exceeded my expectations like they seem to do often. So I was extremely proud of them, the staff that advised them. But I would think that would be similar to most of the student groups that exist on campus too, that our students persist and they persevere through whatever comes their way.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Tom, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for putting this together, you all, and learned quite a bit about the history that I didn't know, even though I was in there in the early 80s. So thanks again for putting this together. Question for you: where is this physically on campus? Number one, and number two.
I went to the old library the first time.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
So thank you very much. So this is put on by the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology, which is located in an old library. And in fact, we're opening a new permanent gallery as well. So it's really great. However, this particular exhibit is in what was known as a QVC room in the Francis Harvey Green Library. So we're only open till the end of the school year, and then it's going down, unfortunately. But if you go through the library where the circulation desk is up there, immediately to your right, you'll see the room, and it's open most days. So do 2 things. Jenna will put our virtual exhibition link in the website. So even if you can't come, it's a 3D like Google Maps kind of thing. You can look at all of these artifacts that you see on display. You can zoom in. You could watch Chelsey and Julia and the other student curators give 2-minute spiels about each of their cases. But you could also find the opening hours, and we're open, I think, every day, every weekday except Thursday this semester from, I think, 10 or 11 to 5.
Okay. And then,
Anybody at door.
okay, super. And part two of the question is, what are the plans for additional collection of artifacts, et cetera, going forward? And will you continue to store those here, or is the plan to just go virtual with everything?
Yeah, so these are great questions, and thanks for reminding me to say these kinds of things. So a couple of
Why I'm
things.
here.
So most of these artifacts are from either special collections, which is run by the special collections librarian Ron McCall on the 6th floor here, or loaned to us by a lot of different organizations. Cara and Charlie loaned us most of the artifacts from the clubs. Women Gender Studies gave the Women Gender Studies stuff. They're going to go back to them unless they want to let or have Ron house all of them, because really special collections is a place to that houses all of these things. However, we also have here an interactive time capsule, sort of. It's a repository for our time capsule. So people all through the year have been, we've been putting notes in. They've been donating things, including giant chunks of Old Main that you see over there, which we had to put on display because it was too big to fit in here, and we wanted everybody to see it. Those will be, and we even have loan forms that sit up here, so that if people are giving something of value, something important like the piece of Old Main, or there's lots of really cool things in here, that they tell who it's from and kind of the history of it and the provenance, as we call it, and then Ron will accession it in special collections. However, one other thing is that when this is all over in May and we close this down, the museum studies students and the anthropology students will actually go through everything and catalog everything. And we're picking 10 artifacts to put in a time capsule. So there's a lot of kind of contemporary things like these masks and pens and things that that people have donated. Those, I would imagine, are going to be things that we're going to be put into a time capsule to be opened at our 200th anniversary. We're going to officially close this. The plan right now, and I can't say for sure if this is what's going to happen, but with the foundation and the Alumni Association and I have talked about moving this to the dais where the president will be on April 23rd. So April 23rd is the big day that everybody should come back to campus. It's our sesquicentennial showcase. It's a Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. All of the colleges will have showcases. We're going to have a planetarium show at noon. There's going to be the museums will all be open. And then at 3, the president is going to basically close down the sesquicentennial year. And the idea is that this will factor into it in some way. So it's Saturday, April 23rd, during the day. It's 1 to 3 is where the big showcase is. We're expecting 7,000 to 10,000 people back on campus. It's alumni weekend as well. There's going to be a scrimmage football game, I believe, the day before. And of course, lots and lots of tours of the SECC, the new science and engineering building. So lots of things going on as well.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that, Michael. Sorry. I did put in the chat the links for the 3D tour, and also on there you will be able to find the times that the exhibit is open, and also the link for the schedule events for Alumni Weekend, and the biggest weekend that we're going to have. So that's April 22nd through the 24th. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right, well, thank you to everyone for this great presentation. Gosh, everyone who was involved, Charlie, Cara, Barrett, he had to leave, Rudy, Chelsey, Julia, and of course, Michael. This was fantastic. Just for everyone on here, please save the date for our next lecture and tour, Tuesday, April 5th at 7 p.m., the history of military service here at Westchester University. You can register right online on the Alumni Association website. So I guess that's it. Everyone have a great night.
All right, thank you.